Hey, welcome to day 3 of our Patterns for Pirates Peg Leg Sew Along. Today we're just going to be color blocking the leg pieces. So if you're doing just the plain peg legs, brain fart, you can just go ahead and skip today, relax, work on something else if you want, or take off on your own. Totally up to you. I am doing the color block version instead of the add-on where you have the strip on the side. So I will be doing 3 color block piecing, top, middle, and bottom. And then I'm also doing just the plain contour waistband. I'm not doing the pocket or anything this time. I just wanted to keep it kind of nice and simple because I've not done this version yet. So I didn't want to do too crazy and then have things go a little wacko. So let's talk about pieces you need. If you are just doing the regular peg legs, all you need is a front and back piece. You should have cut those 2 pieces mirror image because your 2 legs are different. Take my advice from that. I've done it wrong and it's a mess. So you should just have front and back and a waistband. If you're doing the add-on pack, you'll have a front panel, a back panel, a side panel, and then if you're doing the pocket, and then the waistband, if you're doing the regular waistband, it's just a waistband. I am going to be doing a contour waistband, so you'll need lining pieces. I just used some scrap Luxe double brush poly that I had hanging around, and then you'll also need, trying to figure out what everything is here, a front and a back. Here it is. A front and a back panel for the contour waistband in your regular fabric. So we're going to put that aside. We're not going to work on our waistband today. We are just going to work on color blocking. So for the color blocking pieces, you will need a front piece and a back piece. If you didn't label these, you can kind of tell the back piece will be bigger than the front piece. Will be wider. You'll also need a front and back middle color block panel. And then the thing that I love about color block, and what I told y'all yesterday, is when I get into fabric and I start cutting it, things always change. So I realized I had some of this amazing double brush poly Ashenelle double brush poly in black left over from another project. And I was like, this would be perfect for my top. So you'll need a top color block piece and a in the front and back as well. Okay, so I'm gonna put my waistband back in here for now. Alrighty, so what we need to do is we need to color block our front or our top pieces first. Now there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can color block the front pieces and then color block the back pieces. You can do, you can kind of do it however you want. What I tend to do when I'm color blocking is I kind of put things together, group things together. So if I'm color blocking the top, I'm going to color block the top for the front and the back at the same time. Totally up to you how you want to do it. I was going to sneeze. So another thing before we get started is whether you're using a serger or a regular sewing machine. If you're using a serger, you don't need to worry about your stitch because it's a serger. If you're using a regular sewing machine, you want to make sure to use either a stretch stitch or a zigzag stitch because these are very form-fitting. So they need to be able to stretch without snapping those threads, your seam threads. So make sure that you're using a good stretch stitch or zigzag so that they have the allowance to move with you. Okay, so let's add this camera in so you can see the sewing. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to take our front pieces. The thing that I hate about color blocking something that's not printed is that remembering what side you did on each one is kind of crazy. So what I like to do is I like to lay them out mirrored ahead of time. So like here we've got the front pieces, they're mirrored. So we know that they're going to be opposite. Just making sure we put the right side here. There we go. So it doesn't look quite right. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take the color block piece 1 and we're going to line it up with our front piece. And they both have marks on them. So you're going to just line up those marks. Marks there. Make sure that that's right. Okay. All right, and it's a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So that up there. And this up here. I've not done this color block version before, so I'm really excited about it. And all right. Okay. There we go. I was going to say, catch up, camera. All right, so we're going to line them up like this. There's going to be a little bit of overlap at the corners, which is okay because the seam allowance is going to get rid of that. So your black or your top part is going to overlap a little bit, or it's going to stick out a bit, and then your color block piece is going to stick out a little bit. So on the other side. So 1/2 inch seam allowance. Sorry, I know this can get loud. Oops. I can't find my other scissors that I really like to use. I'm wondering if I threw them away on accident. All right, so here is one front color block piece. Let's do the same thing to the other side. You want to make sure too when you're sewing that you're not pulling your fabric out the back or stretching it in the front when you're sewing. You're just kind of help guiding it. And I apologize. I'm a very bad example. You probably want to pin that. I hate pinning. Every time I pin something, I always pin myself. So I try and avoid it as much as possible. All right, now I'm going to do the same thing to the back front pieces. Just going to lay them out just like I did the other ones so that I know they're already mirrored. Just making sure I've got the right side here. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Just going to line them up to make sure that these corner pieces or the fabric markings line up. Okay. And then again, 1/2 inch seam allowance. We're going to attach those to our top back pieces. I had to get a new serger because my husband wanted for Christmas wanted a hoodie, but a long time ago, right when I started sewing, I made him a hoodie lined with fleece. I didn't know what I was doing. Had no idea. Oh, man. Sorry, hang on. I unfolded folded that, so I'm going to make sure that I have it going the right way. Okay. I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, oh, I can line this. So I made a Henley, a Patterns for Pirates Henley, and lined it with fleece and added a hood and a pocket. And I just remember it was a nightmare to sew it. And it looked awful, just awful. But it's one of those pieces that he wears all the time, and I hate it every time he wears it. Can you please not wear that? So he says, well, make me another one and I won't have to wear this one anymore. So this Christmas, I made him one. I found the same fabric, but I found like a plush fleece. And I was like, this will be great. Well, my serger did not think it was so great. Okay, so now what we need to do is we're going to attach this bottom color block piece. Same thing that we've been doing, just matching up the markings. Make sure those line up. We want to make sure the raw edges are aligned and that our marking pieces are aligned as well. This one I don't need to, since we've got the top piece, we'll be able to know what's color blocked, so we won't need to lay them out. But 1/2 inch seam allowance. I love color blocking because it allows me to use up some of my scraps that I've got, and I've got a lot of them. But then my problem I always run into is finding the perfect size piece. But fortunately, I was able to get it done because I'm loving the look of this. All right. So lining up those raw edges and the markings from our pattern. Just gonna now, there was some overlap, but I want to show you when you sew them together, they line up perfectly. You know, there's a couple of little corners here from when I came out. But it's because, especially when you're using a serger, sometimes those fabrics will slip. So it's nice to have a little bit of that overlap there, so you don't have to worry about missing a 1/2 inch chunk. I really like that when there's that allowance in there for the serger to move. All right, and then the same thing with our bottom back pieces. Line those up. Oh, I'm loving this color combination. Okay, 1/2 inch seam allowance, matching those raw edges. Now, I will say with this, because it's so stretchy, that if you're using a regular sewing machine, I would use a zigzag stitch, but then also put like a reinforcing stretch stitch on it. And then clip your seam allowances down if it bothers you. So like what I would do to show you is, so I would do the stretch stitch, and then on the other side where the seam allowance is, I would do a zigzag stitch, or vice versa, just to help reinforce it a little bit, because the last thing you want is the seam on your pants to rip open. Okay, so let's line these up. 1/2-inch seam allowance, matching those raw edges and that point, the marking from our pattern. Okay, so that is the color blocking portion of the peg legs. Now, you have a couple of options on how to finish this that you can choose. Sorry for my reach. Okay, so you can finish the color block portion. My shoe popped off. I normally don't sew with shoes on, but by pressing the seams up or down, however you want to do it. Or you can top stitch. I am going to top stitch mine because I like the look of top stitching. I just think it gives it a little bit more of a finished look. Here we go. If you're going to top stitch, cover stitch machine is amazing, but not a necessity. So you can do a twin needle stitch or twin needle on a regular sewing machine. I was never able to master that technique, and so I got a cover stitch. You can also just do a stretch stitch if that's what you want. You can do one row or two if you want it to be a little bit more looked. For this, it's just kind of to help the fabric lay right and look a little bit nicer. So you definitely don't have to do it if you don't want to. So for my cover stitch, because I'm not doing it in the round, I'm going to use a leader cloth. I'm just going to go over that a little bit. And what that is going to do is that's going to start the stitches on the leader cloth so that when I start them on here, they're going to start right on the edge instead of if you use a cover stitch machine, sometimes it'll start like midway because it just takes a little bit for it to catch. So I like the leader cloth. And then let me get this going. So what I'm doing, the reason why I'm starting and stopping is because I'm making sure my fabric is flat and not wrinkled. There's nothing underneath it, and I'm just kind of moving it off to the side. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this leader cloth off. And then look at how that started that stitch right on the edge there instead of in a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm not going to pull this out. This is something I think a lot of people know about, but I just finally practiced during my major Christmas sewing session. Chain stitching, I think, or I don't know what you call it, but where instead of pulling it off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of stitches in between and then just start my next piece. This was a huge lifesaver for me when I was doing all my Christmas sewing because usually I pull it out, cut it, start it again with the leader cloth, and it was just taking forever. So finally, it's like, okay, I'm gonna try it, and you can do it with the serger too. I don't know, one thing at a time, one new thing at a time. Okay, so we're just gonna top stitch that next piece. The other thing I do too when I stop is I make sure that my seams are all laying the right way, the same way. Okay. one. And we're just going to do this top piece for the next one. Okay, so now we're going to start top stitching the middle and the bottom piece. I think I'm going to have that seam going up. Okay, same thing here. This piece out so it doesn't get any crazy ideas. Okay, so we've got one front piece completely attached with top stitching. Come on, Gemma. And then let's just get those back pieces done. Okay, so now our front pieces are done. This might actually be a back piece. Yeah, so a front piece and a back piece. Okay, last piece. When you're top stitching too, you want to make sure that your seams are the same on each one. So I kind of encased my gray, so I put the seam up towards the black and then down towards the maroon so that this looks kind of like it's inset. So I need to make sure I do that on all my pieces or it's going to look a little, to my eye, to somebody else looking at it, they probably wouldn't notice it, but to me, it would drive me nuts. So I always make sure I keep the same top stitching. To someone else, if they're looking that closely, like, back off, friend. You're a little too personal space. A little too close. Okay, so now this is my last top stitching piece, so I'm going to pull my threads to the front. Oops. Let them pull that to the back. So that kind of locks them in. Throwing my purple thing around. If you have not gotten a purple thing, I got 2 of them. That's my broken one. I got a pack of 2 for like, oh no, that's not my broken one. $5. Totally worth it. At first, everybody was like, you need a purple thing. I'm like, no. And finally I got one. I fed into the hysteria and bought one. Hysteria, I don't know. I got one. And I do not regret it one bit. I find so many different uses for that thing. It's crazy. All right, so now we've got a back piece and a front piece and a mirror back piece and a mirror front piece. And we've got our peg leg pieces. So you should have 4 pieces now, mirror image front and mirror image back, that are color blocked. And then tomorrow we will be sewing the front and back together and attaching the waistband, and then we'll have a new pair of peg legs. Yay! I'm super excited. Make sure in the comments that you share a picture of your color block piecing done so I can admire your handiwork and be inspired by you. I'm super excited. I love, love, love this part of it. So yeah, I am excited. Let's finish up tomorrow and I will see you then. Bye.